Adame, let me ask a question to the children. How many of you know about Halloween? Halloween? You know about Halloween? You don't know? You know what Halloween? Okay. When you talk about Halloween, what comes to your mind first? Right? Yes, the pumpkin lanterns and candies, which is trick and treats, right? Okay. And you know, these kids that come to your home knocking at the door asking for trick and treats, how do they dress up like? What's their makeup like? Is it angelic costume or is it a demonic kind of costume? Demonic kind of costumes. Is there anything else that comes to your mind when you think about Halloween? Okay. So, what does Halloween means? What is Halloween? Halloween is nothing but Hallow evening, right? Hallow, you know about Hallow, right? I mean, when you see the paintings of Jesus Christ, you will see, you know, or Mother Mary or those saints, you will see a, you know, yellow circle around the head. So that's called as Hallow, and Hallow represents sainthood. So it's nothing but a day the church has made to honor the saints, and not only saints. It's about those, to honor those who have led one to Jesus Christ or Christianity, like your grandparents, your parents, or godparents, missionary, pastor, whoever that could be. It is to honor them. Church has made this All Saints Day, right? And that's in November 2nd, I believe, the 2nd or November 3rd year, right? So that is the background of the All Saints Day from the church background. But one would wonder how these things like, you know, the pumpkin lantern and these costumes, you know, demonic costumes and all these tricks and treats came, you know, into this All Saints Day. So to know that, you know, it dates back to many, many centuries ago. In Ireland, there was a tribe, a Gaelic tribe, who used to celebrate this pagan festival called Samhain, which was a post-harvest festival, and it was celebrated at the end of autumn and at the beginning of winter, which is the season, or the first week of November, right? And they believed that the spirits, fallen angels, you can call, would come to them, visit them, and if they are able to please these gods, then they would bless them, and they would have, the winter season which will not be so harsh. So they would have bonfires lit and this pumpkin lanterns lit to welcome them. They will dance around it, and some people would dress up like these ghosts or these demons, and they will go to the houses, and then they will treat them well, give them a good party, and if they don't treat them well, then, you know, the people who come like ghosts would do some tricks like, you know, give fire to the haystack, or do something nasty to the garden, or throw stones and things like that. So that's how this trick and treats came into the picture. The costumes came into the picture. The pumpkin lantern came into the picture. Okay, and what happened is that when Christianity was propagating in this region, a lot of pagans who already converted to Christianity and people who wanted to go to Christianity, they didn't want to leave these good festivals, good traditions, and move to Christianity. So the Christian church actually, replaced that festival with the All Saints Day, and it gave a blind eye to people. Okay, if you want to celebrate these traditions, go ahead. Okay, but don't call it Samhain anymore. Call it All Saints Day. Okay, so that's how these pagan traditions crept into this Halloween festival, which was intended. The purpose intended by the church was good, but you see the condition where we are now. We don't know about Halloween, the good side of the Halloween. We only know about all these other demonic pagan culture things. What about Christmas? When do we celebrate Christmas? December 25th, right. When was Christ born, as per the history? Which season?
In the winter season.
Huh?
In the winter.
Yeah, some say summer, some say spring season, but it was never a winter season. Where was he born? He was born in Bethlehem in Middle East, right? So when we now think about Christmas, what comes to your mind is a coniferous tree with snow on it, right? So where is this coniferous tree coming? Where is this winter season coming? No connection, right? So that is actually coming from some mid-winter festivals that were celebrated in Europe. There were several festivals, but I will just mention about two critical festivals or festivals that were celebrated by the majority. One was the Germanic Yule festival. You have all heard about the Yule log cake and all that, right? So that is coming from this festival, the Yule festival. And people used to celebrate this by cutting the branches of the tree and decorating their houses, making wreaths. So that's how this Christmas wreaths are coming into our houses. Okay? So, and that was festival. Yule festival is actually to give or welcome the sun god at the middle of the winter season. The other festival was even a nastier festival, which was a Saturnial festival. And that is to worship, that was done in Greece, Rome, that side of Europe. And that was to worship the god of Saturn. And in earlier days, very, very ancient times, as part of the festival, there were sacrifices done. And it's not just animals. And sometimes they sacrifice children, they sacrifice virgins, and they will cut the heads and hang it on the tree. And that is a midwinter festival, and you can imagine coniferous trees with eyes on it, and that's where they hang these heads oozing out with blood, so that God Saturn can see it and be pleased with them. And that is how this red decorations in this Christmas tree has come. And if you remember, we used to have Christmas trees here before, for our Christmas carol service and all that. And one reason why we decided not to have it about 3-4 years ago is the reason is behind this, because the tradition behind it and where it is coming from. If you know it, it is very difficult for us to have a Christmas tree right in front when you really come to the church. And again, when the Christianity propagated, there were a lot of people in Europe who loved these festivals, and in order for the propagation of Christianity, just decided that, okay, if we are very conservative in these things, we will not get these people. So it was all about having more people in the church. It's about having more funds coming into the church, and about some people thought that, okay, if I bring in another 100 people to the church, my reward in heaven will be great. But they didn't realize that they are actually bringing in something which they shouldn't have. People focused on quantity than on quality. So that's a mistake the church did. And so we had to accept these pagan things into the church. And today, I still remember sometime in 2008, I believe, one of the bosses I had at the time, he's an Australian guy. So during a Christmas day, he called me. I said, I'm going to the church for this, so I need to go out early or something. And then he said, okay, fine. Philip, tell me, what's the difference between Christmas and Easter? I had been celebrating both, but I really don't. And he's a Christian, by the way. He didn't really know at that time it is about the birth of Christ. All he knew at that time was about, this beautiful Christmas tree at his home, the Santa Claus, and the decorations of the Christmas tree, all the worldly things associated with Christmas, but not the real reason and essence of Christmas. And this is what these festivals do to us. They would look innocent, and they will get into the church, and they will grow, and the essence of the church will go away after some time. Another classic example is Onam. See, the Devas and Asuras, I mean, they are gods and demons for the children who do not know. Gods and demons, Devas and Asuras, they had a fight on who will rule the world, and the Asuras won the battle, which are demons, and Mahabali was the king. Mahabali, as we call, was the king at that time. And we believe, or we hear that the rule of the king, during the rule of the king, there was a luxury, plentifulness of food. That's what we see, all this nice plantain leaf and sumptuous lunch, right? So that's a good part of it, by the way. But that's not all about it. That's just to fool us. They are showing this sumptuous lunch part of it. There is much more than. Can you imagine how the rule of a demonic king would have been? If you want to imagine, I can help you, focus your attention to the satanic churches we have today. Look at them. Who goes to the churches? Who are the devotees of the churches? The rich and the famous, right? The film actors, the heads of state, presidents, those who are in authority, or who are having, multi-billion-dollar businesses. These are the people who are the devotees of these churches. And why do they go there? Because all the richness of the world is offered to them in these churches. So you can imagine how a demonic king's rule would have been. The subjects would have really had a great time. And that's exactly the time Mahabali was. And people enjoyed, and there was no need for them to remember gods. There was no need for them to go to the temple, because they were provided with everything. When I say everything, it's not about food. It's about drinks, drunkenness, debauchery, immorality, lawlessness. It comes in a package, guys. And all that was given at that time. And people cherished those moments. They had under the king. And because people did not go to the gods were upset. And they made a plan to trick this king and put him, pushed him down to the Hades. And that was the day, actually, the gods had victory over demons. But in Onam Day, what do we celebrate? Is it the victory of the gods? No. We are celebrating the great times of that demon king. And I know that most of you might not have thought about it from this perspective, but this is definitely a perspective worth considering. Because now this Honor Festival, I'm not definitely talking about the lunch part of it, but I'm really concerned about the churches that bring in, or ready to celebrate Onam within the churches, inside the churches. Remember, in the Lord's Prayer, what do we say? Thy kingdom come. And during Onam, what do? We are remembering and praising the great time of the demonic kingdom. Now you see the disconnect. So this is why we need to be very careful to understand the background of these traditional things before we bring it to the churches. So there are many festivals like this. I just want to name a few. And as Christians, is it good to be fascinated by these pagan festivals? And there are cases, that especially in Kerala, there have been arguments in the churches on how to celebrate Onam, and there have been divisions in the churches based on that. So this is the level at which we are going. And the other day, while I was going through this, preparing it, I came across a beautiful story, which I want to share with you. So the story goes like this. It's in a village set up in somewhere north of Europe. And there were a few people living in that village, and one fine day, a missionary, a pastor, reached the village. And he started preaching gospel to these people. And they were all happy, so they grew in spirit, and the number of people who gathered there, increased day by day, and neighboring peoples came to worship them, join them in the prayer and gatherings. And it became bigger and bigger week after week, and it came to a situation that they can no longer be accommodated even in the biggest house they had in that society. Okay? So the pastor said, I think we should have a church, but don't worry, I know that we don't have funds, I know that we don't have resources, but let's pray about it. I know God will help us. And they prayed and prayed. And the funds started coming from strangers, from tourists who visited the place, from other villages, even from across the country. They got funds. And in a year's time, they made a beautiful chapel. And when the construction was over, and when it is about to conduct the dedication ceremony, the pastor called in the elders, and he said, "Guys, see the wondrous work of God. We could complete this church, and I've called you here to discuss on the dedication ceremony." By the way, there were two things for which we hadn't had funds, and last week somebody came in and sponsored both. One was the fencing work, which is already started and might take another week to complete. The other thing is the curtain. I've got the money for the curtain, but can one of you please stand up and then volunteer for buying the cloth and stitching it? So one elder stood up and said, "Yes, Pastor, I will do it. But would appreciate if you can suggest any color, if you have in mind." Okay, so another elder stood up and said, "Yes, I have a suggestion. Let's have a blood red color for the curtains as a symbolic representation of the blood shed by our Lamb, Jesus Christ." Yeah, good idea. So everybody kind of nodded to it. But at that time, another elder stood up and said, "See, if you look into the book of Revelation, you can see Jesus coming as the King of Kings, not as a sacrificial goat. And when you read that, you see him wearing dazzling white robe as a king. And now we as Christians are looking forward to the second coming of Jesus. So I would recommend the color of the curtain to be dazzling white." Both have got biblical backup, and both sounds to be great ideas. And they thought, okay, which one should be the right thing to go for? But they could not conclude on that. And the pastor said, "Hey, don't worry, guys. We are going to have a Sunday service in 2 days' time. So we will ask the congregation, what do they do? We'll give them this option and let them choose. It's their church." Okay. So the Sunday service happened, and then the pastor told the congregation about the two recommendations and the biblical background behind choosing those two colors. And there were some discussions happening between the congregation, and then the pastor said, okay, so those who say red, move to the right, and those who say white, move to the left. And the church congregation was divided into two, and pastor started counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You know what happened? It was 50-50. Half the people said we need red, and half the people said we need white. So the pastor was a kind of confusion. What to say? He wanted to handle it diplomatically, and luckily he got an idea. He said, "Yeah, guys, curtain, unlike other furnishings, need to be washed at times. So it might be a better idea to have 2 sets of curtain, so that after every month we can wash this curtain and put the other curtain on. So we will have, I have got enough funds with me for 2 sets of curtain. So we'll have 1 set of red curtain and 1 set of white curtain made, and which will be rotated, every month, alternate months." Oh, okay, everybody said, yeah, okay, fine. So it was kind of a win-win solution, right? Dedication happened, first month, people came in, and it was all a red curtain put. It was a turn of the red curtain that month. So it was all put. You know what happened? The people who opted for the white curtain did not turn up for the service that month. And that month passed. So these people who voted for the red curtain were still there, and they were criticizing, how can these people not come to the church for the sake of a curtain? Hey, come on. And then came the next month, and they had the white curtain there. But who was missing? The people who opted for the red curtain was missing. Remember, these are the people who were criticizing the white curtain group last month. But now, it is this term, they did not have. So, a solution which appeared to be a win-win did not turn up as a win-win. There was clearly a winner and a loser. Now, I'm going to say what the winner said, and you need to tell me who that was. All right? Okay. The winner said, what a foolish human beings. I tried many tricks on them. I gave them bigger challenges. But these people prayed together and stayed together and deflected every challenge I put in front of them. Now you see, for the mere color of the curtain, the church is divided. When they prayed together, I thought they are going to bring thy kingdom here. Now you see what happened. This is indeed a breakthrough. Whom do you think that was? Satan. Then from the other corner, there came a sound from the loser. And he said, my children, what have you done? You have fallen in the trap of the fool. Do you really think I'm worried about the color of the curtain? When you pray together, when you stay together, guys, I thought I was waiting for this day to come and dwell in this church and be with you. But you know, Joe, I cannot stay where there is no love. I cannot stay where there is hatred. Children, I have to leave now. I will wait for the day you will all join together. I will come back and will dwell with you. Whom do you think that was? Jesus. When you really look into, this is a real a story, not a real one, but you know, if you look at the condition of the churches we have today, doesn't it portray the situation of the Christian churches we have? We fight and argue about things which are not important for our Christian life. We spend so much of effort and money for celebrations in the name of Christ. Understand, these are deceptive plans of the Satan to get into our churches and divide our churches. We need to be wise. Can somebody read for me Galatians chapter 2, verse 24. Galatians chapter 2, verse 24.
We went there because of those who pretended to be followers and had sneaked in among us as spies. They had come to take away the freedom
sorry, Sean, I think maybe I made a mistake there. It was not 24, probably maybe 21 or 22, but it goes like this. I have got it here. Those who belong to Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Are we giving more priority to our passions, desires, pagan cultures, celebrations, festivals, more than the things which Jesus expects us to do? Are our desires capable of dividing the church, or even have the slightest chance of spreading hatred? Then it is time that we step back. Giving priority to anything other than God is considered as idol worship attitude. Even if it is about the love for your children, love for your wife, your family, your passions, your hobbies, it's considered as idol worship by our Lord. John chapter 3 verse 30 says, "He must become greater and I must become less." In other words, I must decrease that He may increase. As Christians, this is the doctrine we are supposed to follow. May the Lord Almighty give us the wisdom to understand His priorities and focus our efforts for the right cause.